slides.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
I see your screen just fine. Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, everyone. I'm sharing my screen, so I just want to make sure my slideshow is ready to go.
Perfect.
Okay.
So folks are rushing in. It's great.
Yeah, so thanks for the early birds that came in, and welcome everyone that's coming in as we speak. You could just enjoy the view from the springtime, the upcoming springtime in Central Park. It's one of my favorite places to be present, to be mindful, and to exercise. So I like to cycle through Central Park. This is one of the duck ponds. So this is I don't know if they call it the upper or the lower. There's two duck ponds that are connected. One's called lower, one's upper. This is the noisier one Sunday morning because the model boat club is out there with their little boats. So the ducks move to the other side of the lake.
Smart, just smart.
So I'd like to introduce you all to Leona. Many of you that have come to our Empowering Patients talks with the Burnaby Division know Leona, that she's the backbone and foundation for the organization. And we've been working together since we started these talks. I'm not sure if it's 8 years now.
I think it's 8 years. Sounds about right.
Yeah, so I think we're completing our 8th year. Originally it was in person, but since the start of the pandemic, we turned it into virtual talks. The thing I miss is actually seeing your faces in person, and actually it feels like more of a connection. We're in the same room, but I really appreciate you taking the time out on this wonderful rainy evening to join Leona and myself. Please take a look at the chat because Leona's put a lot of time, where there are many other activities in the division, to list some of the other useful resources. So we have the main webpage for the Division of Family Practice, and also a link to the COVID Roundup. That's our regular update on COVID, and it'll be converting to a more general health update. But still remember, COVID is still a thing. We're still at risk for getting one of the latest variants, even though we've been immunized or had COVID before. So be careful. If you're in closed indoor places, do wear a face mask, and an N95 or KN95 is much more effective in preventing COVID. And if you're not vaccinated, please consider getting vaccinations and talk to your family doctor if you have any questions about it. So I hope you're all staying safe. And I know it's a minority of you out there that have not had COVID, and I hope you remain blessed and healthy, and all the rest of you remain healthy as well. Any other links that I should be pointing out, Leona?
Sure, yeah. So I just put our regular Empowering Patients link in there. That's got upcoming chats. We have 2 more for the season. The next one is on February 16th, and it's all about heart disease. Then we're going to, I'm going to put our other resources, so all of the presentations and key points documents that Dr. Wong has put together for this program. I'm going to list those in there so you can print them off, you can email them to your friends, which would be great. I'm going to put the Burnaby Primary Care Network's PCN, what's called PCN website, and that's the PCN is a tribe partnership with Burnaby Family Doctors, the Health Authority, Fraser Health Authority, and our community partners. And so they get together and they've built these wonderful programs to support seniors, programs to support youth, programs to support the disenfranchised. We've got community fridges, now 4 community fridges in Burnaby. So if you can go to that website, which I will share, and find out where they're located. And if you'd like to contribute some groceries there, it's a wonderful program. I do get calls from folks in need. So it's a great program to support. We have another health talk type program called Doc Talks. So this one is Dr. Wong specific, the Empowering Patients. Doc Talks are other doctors in Burnaby who have come together to speak to different topics. They're maybe an hour long. We've got one on COVID boosters that just happened recently, one on lab medicine, how to figure out your lab medicine, one on the importance of foot care. So we had a foot care nurse speak to that. So that's a great link that I will share. And as Dr. Wong said, the COVID Roundup, it's a weekly newsletter that I'll post the link. You can read the January 6th issue. And at the bottom of the issue is the subscribe page. So you just link through, subscribe, and then you'll receive the email. So they have been weekly, they come out on Fridays, but we are transitioning to a monthly, more broader type of a newsletter. So it's not COVID, but it will have COVID in there as well. So, and then the last thing I'll say before we get to the actual program is at the end of the program, when I close down the webinar, there will be a survey that pops up. And if you could just take a moment, it's 8 questions, take a moment and answer those questions for us. We really, really appreciate the feedback, and it helps us build the program and develop the program. So I'm going to sign off for a few minutes and let Dr. Wong get going.
Okay, thank you very much, Leona. So why are we here? I do these talks and do this stuff in my community and the community at large, because I think that part of my calling is not just being a family doctor, looking after my huge panel of patients, over 2,000, but that I have a duty to care for my whole community, because I grew up in Burnaby, attended all the libraries, went to school here, did my swim lessons at all the community pools and outdoor pools. And this is one of my ways of giving back. And all of us care about our families, and we have our friends. And as we grow and grow in our sense of our greater identity beyond our smaller selves, we know that we're responsible for the community. So all those important things that Leona was pointing out with the primary care network and the work of the division and all our partners that care about the health of every member of our community, they really show us that it takes a village to look after every individual in the village, and every one of us makes a difference in our larger community and as part of our larger identity. As a family doctor, I care about my patients, and my golden rule of practice that I share with Christina and Helen, my medical office assistants, is that we treat every patient as we would want a best friend or family member to be treated, with the same care and consideration and the same speed of referrals and setting up tests and follow-up as we would for anyone else that we care about deeply. And as family docs, as the work of the Burnaby division shows you, family docs care about our community, and we're so thankful with all the organizations that work with us, because none of us individually or as individual groups can look after everyone, and we each bring our different strengths and a lot of passion to the care of our whole community. And every one of us, everyone in this room, this virtual room, all of you in the audience as well in your homes, we're also responsible for the future beyond us, not only our own children, nieces, nephews, and the people that we're in touch with, but we have a responsibility to ensure the wealth and health of our community. So as family docs, we care about our patients, but we definitely care about our community. So today I'll do the usual brief introduction to the 4 foundations of self-care, which is the backbone of my entire emotional well-being, physical well-being, social well-being, and physical health. So that's the Empowering Patients program. We'll talk about why emotional health matters. Why is a doctor talking about emotional health? It affects every aspect of our lives, including our physical health. How to recognize specific anxiety and mood disorders where you should seek extra help if you're struggling with any of these symptoms and it affects your quality of life. And I'll give you the owner's manual for your brain. So all of us were born with a brain that's ever evolving and growing, but no one gave us the owner's manual. So I've put together some hacks and ideas so that we can all better understand where our thoughts, where our core beliefs, whether they're limiting or positive, and where those emotions come from. And most importantly, I'll reveal your superpower. So you have a superpower that most of you haven't realized that you had. And I'll give you some practical tips with 4 key emotional well-being skills that we should have been teaching in school, but even doctors weren't that familiar with them. But these are key things that if you're a teacher or a parent or grandparent or an uncle or aunt, I hope you can share them with the young people in your lives so that it becomes second nature and we can really understand how our brains work and how we can live happier, fulfilling lives. So all of this I hope to achieve in the next hour and a bit and allow questions at the end. Oh, before I finish, I'm hopefully you're in a not driving in a car or anything that requires attention on something other than what we're going to discuss today. It's not that you're going to fall asleep, but we'll do a little meditation exercise, things where you want to be more absorbed and not driving a motor vehicle at the same time. So what is healthcare? A lot of us think it's what we do in the hospital, and those of us in family practice would say a lot of it's what we do in the community, but really who provides most of your healthcare? And it's not a trick question. It's not family doctors. It's really you. So you are the most important person. That real healthcare is self-care, and you're the one that's most responsible. But our role as healthcare providers is to give you the knowledge and support so that you can make the best decisions and find the resources so that you can live your best life. And the best predictor of our future health, at least those things that are under our control, are the habits we practice every day. So that's part of the foundation of self-care. So the 4 foundations are what you eat, what you put into your body, like a healthy, balanced diet, versus the unhealthy things that we might indulge in, like alcohol, drugs, nicotine. And then second foundation is what you do, physical activity balanced by rest. The third foundation is how you feel, the topic of today, emotional well-being. And the fourth foundation is how we connect, healthy relationships. So that's kind of an overview of the many topics that we cover, including those 4 foundations, but we also talk about how to deal with the healthcare system and healthcare providers, how to make your wishes known, how to be your own advocate, and also some details that you might have missed if you don't have a family doctor or haven't seen your family doctor since the start of the pandemic. Things you should be looking out for, what screening tests you need, and also some key chronic conditions that are really important for all of us, even if we don't have a family history or any symptoms so far, that we should know about, like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart disease, and lung disease. And just a reminder, my next talk will be just after Valentine's. So it's close to the heart. I'll be talking about what we should all know about heart disease. And then the following month in March, on my dad's birthday, March 9th, I'll be talking about lung disease, including chronic lung disease and asthma. So again, Leona alluded to all the activities of the division and the primary care network. So take a look at our website and the links on the chats as well. So what is emotional well-being? I like the term emotional well-being rather than mental health, because people associate mental health with mental illness. And so people sometimes define emotional health and emotional well-being as the absence of serious problems like a psychosis, like schizophrenia, or anxiety or depression disorders. Is emotional well-being happiness? And then how do you define happiness? This is my definition. I think emotional well-being is a deep sense of meaning and purpose in your life that you're connected to every day. It's an abiding sense of peace, an ability to manage the stress and the transitions that are a part of every life, because change is constant, and we need to constantly change as well. So I want you to become an agent of positive change and have that sense of control over those aspects in our lives that we do control, your superpower that I'll be talking about. It's awareness of our thoughts and feelings and how to manage them. And those will be the focus of the emotional well-being skills that I'll summarize today. Emotional health matters for many reasons. Depression is a major cause of being absent from school or from work, and short and long-term disability. So a lot of my time, maybe 20% of my day, even though people are coming in with supposedly physical problems, a lot of it relates to relationships and emotional health. Anxiety holds us back from doing what we need to do, from moving forward, from reaching out and really giving our best to the world. And emotions influence our behavior. When we're angry, we regress. So a 5-year-old will act like a baby, a teenager will act like a toddler, and a grown adult will again act like a child. We will say and do things that we wouldn't do if we were feeling calm. So we regress in age, in our development, and we aggress. We do things that are perhaps violent in word or in action that we wouldn't mean to do. And then when we're depressed, we withdraw from other people and involvement in life. And when we're anxious, we can freeze and hold ourselves back from doing what we need to do or what we really want to do. Emotions affect our relationships and they shade our thinking. So when we're anxious again, we overestimate the danger or the challenge that we have to deal with, whether it's home stuff or work or finances. And we underestimate our own personal resources and our ability to manage. And when depressed, we also contract. We think negatively about ourselves, negatively about our situation, and about our future. So it narrows our focus and our options. So I'll talk a bit about anxiety disorders. So we all have anxiety. We all have ups and downs and moods. But anxiety disorders are specific psychiatric conditions that really affect important areas of your life. So when it has a big impact on being able to go to school or to work and perform well, and how it affects your home and social life. So I'll talk about these specific anxiety disorders, although there's many other more nuanced, subtle anxiety disorders that require attention. These are the most common ones, some of which you may have heard of and some that may be new. Generalized anxiety is excessive worry about everything. So I have a personal experience with this because when I was younger, I used to be extremely anxious about everything and kind of thought I got that from my mom. It may be genetic, but it could also be from my mom's experiences. So she was always worried something terrible would happen, but her life experience growing up, many terrible things actually happened. So she was born in Vancouver, grew up in Strathcona, which is near the Vancouver Chinatown. She had a big family of siblings, and she was near the middle of the family. And when she was 9 years old, her mom died, and her father had died a few years before, leaving all the kids, one still in diapers, and the oldest still a teenager, orphaned. So she knew what would happen to lose a loved one. So she was always worried something bad would happen to us. And she tended to worry about everything, which was great because everything was looked after, but she would worry quite excessively. My first school dance, halfway coming home, she met me halfway because she thought I was out too late, although it wasn't even 10 p.m. at that time. So I kind of grew up with someone that worried a lot, and I kind of inherited or learned to start worrying about everything and double checking on things. But I was able to transform and manage that anxiety so that I worried just enough to look after the important details for every patient and don't leave important things undone. Another common anxiety disorder that many people have experienced is panic disorder. All of us will experience a panic attack at some time, but a panic disorder is a little bit different. It's recurrent panic attacks. And not only are they recurrent and frequent, but we spend much of the time worrying about the panic attack coming back. So that turns a regular panic attack into a panic disorder. So a panic attack is when we get symptoms of extreme anxiety. Some of them are related to adrenaline and cortisol that peaks when we're in fight or flight mode, when we're actually confronting real danger. So the symptoms could be pain or pressure or tightness in the chest, shortness of breath, or heart racing or skipping beats, sweating profusely, again, feeling short of breath, and sometimes feeling dizzy and think we're going to pass out. So those are the physical symptoms of a panic attack, and it brings many people to the emergency department because we do have to rule out a heart attack or anything serious when people present with these symptoms. So if you have any of these symptoms, don't ignore them, see a doctor, make sure that there is nothing significantly wrong with your heart or with your lungs. But when you've had those things checked out and you're getting these recurrent panic attacks, it is important to seek a healthcare provider and counselor so that we can manage it. And it is manageable, sometimes with medications, but often with counseling and learning mental health skills to manage the sensations, the feelings, and the thoughts that are associated with panic. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, involves two things. Obsession, so those are repetitive, intrusive thoughts that you can't seem to control, and or recurrent compulsions. That's the feeling that you're being forced or have to give in to do a particular act, like to wash your hands, even though you've already washed your hands sufficiently to prevent COVID, but doing it repeatedly such that your hands are chapped or you're spending so much time on it that you're neglecting other important things in your life. Or checking things, like checking 4, 5, 6 times to make sure you've locked all the doors, or checking 5 or 6 times to make sure you did turn off the oven. And there are sometimes compulsive rituals or poems or things that we have to repeat in order to relieve this extreme anxiety that builds up if we don't give in to these obsessions or compulsions. So a lot of us might have obsessive compulsive traits, which is common among physicians, and that's useful so that we do make sure everything is done, that we didn't leave the sponge in the patient after sewing up for surgery, and that we didn't do things or left things that are undone that are really important. So obsessive compulsive traits are not necessarily bad things, but it's a disorder if it's affecting how you enjoy your life and how you get through the rest of your life. Social anxiety, which some people think is just like extreme shyness, means excessive anxiety in specific social situations, such as public speaking, which most people do have, or when you have to go for a job interview, or speaking up in class. And some people just going shopping provokes a huge amount of anxiety, having to see other people and to do interactions with cashiers or at the restaurant as well. So I had extreme social anxiety up into young adulthood. And I worked on a lot of things to improve that. With social anxiety, we put too much excessive focus on ourselves, our small little selves, and we're very judgmental of ourselves, and we think that we have a magnifying glass so everyone else is looking at us perspire or shake or feel nervous or stutter when we're in a social situation. And that excessive focus on thoughts about being evaluated by other people increases the anxiety. So part of the treatment is to recognize those thoughts that are extreme, perhaps irrational, but exaggerated, where we're putting too much focus on ourselves and being evaluated when without more of a balanced view. So I went from being so anxious that I would not want to talk to other people at parties or meet new people or feel anxious at a store or at a restaurant, and definitely anxious about speaking out in class, like in medical school, fear of being evaluated, to recognizing that if I'm giving a talk or speaking out, I'm just conveying something that's important to share with the other person. And I focus more on the other person rather than on myself. When I'm giving a talk, even if it's in person with 100 people or 200 or 400 people, I'm no longer anxious. I recognize some of the physical symptoms of increased energy, muscle tension, the heart speeding up as excitement, which are identical symptoms. And it more energizes the talk that I'm going to give. I'm not feeling very anxious at all talking to you, so hopefully I don't put you to sleep and have not enough energy. But when I'm focusing more on the message, what I want to share with you, I'm not going to be worried too much about how I look or how I'm being judged at the same time. So it just goes to show that we can go from feeling limited by anxiety or mood disorders to learning new ways of thinking about ourselves and our relationships with other people and our thoughts and feelings, knowing that we have a superpower that we can learn and practice and control these things that could be limiting and troublesome. Phobias are another anxiety condition. And probably the most common is arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, because I have two arachnophobics in my house, my wife and my daughter, and I'm the one that has to catch the spider. But I never want to kill a spider. So I have a special spider catcher to safely get the spider into this little glass pyramid, and so I can release the spider out into the wild, into the garden. Acrophobia is a fear of heights that I used to have, but I got over it by learning the flying trapeze. And after breaking 9 ribs, I lost my fear of falling and of heights. Claustrophobia is a fear of confined spaces, and we encounter that a lot. It's very common, and it's a reason why some people need extra medication or coaching or counseling or hypnosis before they go for an MRI. But they're all treatable and not necessarily with medications. Mood disorders are different from the anxiety disorders, and the two common types are depression and bipolar disorder. So depression has symptoms that you will recognize, like the mood symptoms, feeling sad or hopeless, losing your enjoyment or pleasure in the things that you usually enjoy, and losing your motivation to get to school, get to work, and when it's extreme, just to get out of the bed or get out of the house. And depression, the medical condition, is different from when we're just feeling sad because something bad happened, like we lost our job or lost a best friend or lost a loved one. Those can be significant mood changes, but depression is where it really has a significant effect in your function and enjoyment of life in the long term. So it's hard for people that have never had clinical depression to understand that their loved one, their teenager, can't snap out of it, can't instantly change how they're thinking about things. So it's not through just an act of will that someone that has clinical depression can get out of it. They need support from health professionals and counseling professionals, and they need understanding and support from their loved ones and friends. We also have cognitive symptoms of depression. It can impair our ability to concentrate on things. It can make us more forgetful. It can make people think that they have premature dementia. In fact, psychiatrists call depression pseudo-dementia. An older person may not have dementia at all, but they're forgetful, misplacing things, not paying attention, repeating conversations simply because they're depressed. But we have to ask more questions and spend more time with the patient to understand what underlies pseudo-dementia, which is actually depression. Some of the cognitive symptoms could be a restriction in how we're thinking, or a focus on death, or thoughts of suicide or harming ourselves. It can shade our thinking so that we're blaming ourselves excessively or feeling guilty excessively more than we ought to. And the physical symptoms of depression could be mistaken for other things like an underactive thyroid or anemia. They include extreme fatigue and tiredness. That's really physical and mental. A change in our sleep patterns, usually needing much more sleep than usual, but sometimes with interrupted sleep or not being able to fall asleep. Or a significant change in your appetite. Some of us may eat too much or have no appetite at all when we're depressed. Bipolar disorder means episodes of depression with other episodes where it's quite the opposite, what we call mania or hypomania. So a lot of patients with depression, we might, as a doctor, I might be treating them for years and not realize they actually have bipolar disorder. That when they're not feeling depressed, sometimes they're actually manic. So a mania or hypomania is marked by a heightened mood and energy, like so much energy that they don't need any sleep, or can get by a 2-hour sleep and still feel lots of energy and enthusiasm for the next day. It's marked not just by confidence, but overconfidence, like severely underestimating the barriers in front of us and overestimating our abilities. An example would be taking on huge things that we normally wouldn't take when we're feeling our normal collected selves, like taking on too many activities to do, applying for jobs that are beyond our training and expertise and experience. And it impairs our judgment. So common things that might happen is someone might start excessively taking big risks, like gambling or being more promiscuous than usual, and put themselves at risk for acquiring infections or unwanted pregnancy. Or someone will spend excessively when they're in this heightened mood as well. And when they come out of the mania or the hypomania, they realize that they did something that they regretted because they weren't thinking their normal rational selves. So it definitely impairs our judgment. So anyone that has suffered from episodes of depression should look carefully and maybe talk to their family and their physician or counselor just to make sure they may not have bipolar disorder, because they're treated in different ways. Antidepressants will lift a depression, but might make us more prone to manic episodes. So if they're using medications, they use mood stabilizing medications with or without the antidepressant. And it also is well managed with a combination of cognitive therapy and mindfulness, but it requires a professional approach if you suffer from bipolar disorder. And a third big category beyond anxiety conditions and mood disorders are psychotic symptoms. So it means an impaired ability to test reality, not knowing the difference between a dream or fantasy and what really exists or what's true. It could be marked by delusions, like fixed false beliefs that are different from mainstream thinking. So if you're very religious or belong to a small religious community that some might call a cult, some might think that's like a delusion, but delusions are usually far beyond that, much different. So fixed false beliefs, such that you believe that you are part of royalty, but it hasn't been confirmed, or that you are actually divine and God himself or herself. It could be marked by hallucinations, seeing, hearing, or feeling things that are not really there, like people talking to you or noticing a presence in the room that, and we really know that person's not really there. Or totally disorganized behavior. Like often one type of schizophrenia is the disorganized type, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of sense in their thinking and thought structure when we're talking to them. And they might not shower anymore or wear appropriate clothing. So of course, it's hard. Most people with a significant psychotic disorder may not recognize it in themselves because they may be caught up in their false beliefs, the delusions, or they really believe the hallucinations are real, or they don't recognize how disordered their thinking has become and how separated from reality. Often it's a family member or friends that bring them to medical attention. So where to find help? In addition to reaching out to a family doctor or to the emergency, if you are suicidal or your loved one is suicidal at risk of harming themselves or other people. So if it's not at that point, there's other resources that you can turn to. In the Burnaby community, we have Burnaby Mental Health at Burnaby Hospital. You can access them through fraserhealth.ca or by calling this number. So they have teams of psychologists, psychiatric nurses, psychiatrists, a whole team that can provide assessment and treatment in the form of counseling and, if required, medication. And they're also there for crisis intervention with extreme psychosis where someone's safety is at risk or suicidal thinking. Camry Child and Family Services is a great resource in South Burnaby, especially for counseling for families and for children as well. Anxiety BC is a great resource. It's now Anxiety Canada. So it's if you hit the link anxietybc.com, it's expanded to anxietycanada.com. where they have a lot of cognitive therapy courses, lots of education, and a great app that you can put on your phone for managing anxiety. It's called the Mind Shift app. So it's free for downloading, plus other resources from Anxiety Canada. And the Mood Disorders Association of BC, that's their website, offers support groups, wellness programs, and cognitive therapy. And importantly, SAFER is a special organization that provides education and support and counseling for those who have had suicidal thoughts, have attempted suicide, or support for family members. So a good number to reach if you need support, or a loved one or a friend needs support. So here's the user's manual that you've been waiting for, how our brains work. Our brains are thought factories, so they produce endless thoughts, perhaps 1,000 thoughts every hour, most of them repetitions of previous thoughts. So it's constantly processing information based on sensations, but also based on memories and where we focus our attention. And it's happening on both a conscious level where we're aware of it and a subconscious level at the same time. It's constantly producing thoughts, some of which may be true, but many are not accurate thoughts or reflections of reality. And the most important thing is the thoughts we focus upon, we call it rumination, and we focus excessively, shape our emotions and our perspectives, and therefore shape our behavior as well. So being aware of our thoughts and realizing that not all of our thoughts are accurate, not all of them are true, and that repeating thoughts over and over again, ruminating upon them, really strengthen that pattern. They become habits of thought, like any other habit you have. It becomes easier to fall into that same routine of responding to your life situation and relationships in the same way that may not be good for you and your relationships in life. We call that maladaptive. If it's not helping you. In our brains, our thoughts have a negativity bias. So Rick Hanson, who's a neuropsychologist, used the term negativity bias, saying that our brains are Velcro for bad experiences. They kind of stick in our mind and we remember them really well. And Teflon to the good experiences. So if someone gives us a compliment, that slips right on by. Someone gives us a criticism and we think about that all day long. And that negativity bias helped us survive. Our ancestors survived by tuning into the negative, tuning out the positive. So they looked for all the things that could be wrong in their environment and with themselves. So they'd have to look out for potential danger. So our brains are so biased towards negative things in ourselves and others that we really have to see 5 positive things, have 5 positive thoughts just to balance and come out neutral for each negative thought. And that's really important for our relationships, as I'll mention in a moment. So emotions are not the enemy. Emotions are part of being human. They've helped us survive. They do have value. If we didn't have desire, none of us would be here because our parents would never have gotten together. If we didn't have sadness, we wouldn't avoid the things that cause us pain. And if we didn't have anger, we wouldn't defend ourselves and we wouldn't defend our loved ones. So they have helped humankind, our ancestors, survive. So, that the human beings that didn't have any anxiety or worry, they're the ones that didn't prepare for the future and they didn't survive. So if you didn't have anxiety, you wouldn't run around from danger, you wouldn't plan ahead, and you would ignore the fire alarm. So our brains, this is kind of a simplification, but you can think of our instinctual reptilian brain, which is still a part of our brain stem, our emotional brain, which is part of the limbic system in the midbrain, so that developed in mammals, and the neocortex is our thinking rational brain, although we produce a lot of irrational, abnormal thoughts as well. So that's a later primate development in monkeys and our shared ancestors as well. So you might think of, I like to use our hand as an illustration. So right at the base of the thumb would be our reptilian instinctual part of the brain. So that's the fight or flight, survival, satisfying hunger, sexual desires. That's really at the base, kind of the hindbrain. On top of that is the limbic system right over here. So that's our emotional brain where we feel love, compassion, anger, depression, and happiness as well. And then on top of that is our neocortex. So that our neocortex is our thinking, planning brain. But when we're emotionally aroused by the limbic brain or in a fight or flight survival mode, then we flip our lid and then our regular thinking kind of flies out the window and we're controlled by our emotions. And the emotional brain can hijack our thinking at that time. And that's why strong emotion like anger, anxiety, or deep sadness or depression can really limit our thinking and change our focus, because the emotional aspects really affect our thinking as well. Another illustration, the 3 levels of our brain. Brain 1.0, the reptilian brain for just survival, and then the primate emotional system, brain 2.0 for emotions, and then the neocortex, brain 3.0 that we all have. And we're going to be using brain 3.0 to manage those emotions and feelings and those difficult thoughts. Another model of looking at the brain is an old one, because we have 2 sides of a brain, the left and the right brain. So you probably all know that we have 2 cerebral hemispheres. The left side of the brain controls the right side of the body, and the right side of the brain controls the left side of the body. So it's kind of there's a reverse in one of the positions of some of the portions of the brain in people that are left and right-handed, but that's in general how the body works. But Jill Bolte Taylor was a neuroscientist who suffered a stroke that actually shut down the left side of her brain. And she wrote about her experiences in a book about 20 years ago, A Stroke of Insight. So her stroke gave her a new insight, because when her left brain was offline, she realized that the left side of the brain is our linear problem-solving, judging, thinking, anxious, depressed, angry side of the brain, where we kind of create our small separate self or smaller ego. So it has a certain way of processing our life that's different from the right brain that was totally in focus when she had the stroke that wiped out the left side. She felt creative, connected, a sense of peace, and her sense of self was expanded to include her connection to all living beings and the whole universe. So from that, she wrote a very recent book from the past year, 2022. She wrote Whole Brain Living, where she talks about 4 characters in our brain, which actually align with Carl Jung, the famous psychoanalyst. So he called it the persona, and that's the personality of the left thinking brain, which is more linear, time-based, goal-driven, very structural, looks at differences, always judging, always comparing. So that's the part of that's online in traditional schools and traditional workplaces. So we spend much of our time in that persona, and so much time that we actually limit our sense of self to this little self that we show to the world. On the left side of the brain, the emotional self, Carl Jung would call that the shadow. So it's our deep, dark emotions. It compares the present to past memories. Happiness is based on external conditions, like having enough money or social status or physical appearance, being young rather than older, being perfect rather than normal, and being flawed. It is very pessimistic. It is focused on survival, fight, flight, or freeze, all on the left side. But on the right side, Dr. Taylor talked about the emotional right brain being present moment focused, mindful, connected with the universal flow, with constant change. This is where we experience deep joy and gratitude. We feel connected to our bodies and to our environment, and we see possibilities. So Carl Jung called this the anima or animus. And the right thinking brain, our 4th character, thinks about the world in different ways. It's more creative. It's more parallel processing, looking at different things at different times and open to new ways of thinking. It is more accepting of things as they are and possibilities. It's the side that's connected with their deeper self, that's connected with all living beings and connected with the divine. And Carl Jung called that our true self, our expanded self. So 2 sides of the brain, you might think of that left brain, where a lot of our anxieties and neuroses, negative thinking, judging, comparing arise from. And from that, we construct a smaller sense of self called the persona. And a lot of our negative emotional responses are generated from that left cerebral hemisphere. And then the right side of the brain, which we nurture with these key emotional well-being skills that we'll be talking about, particularly mindfulness and cognitive therapy, gives us a more expanded approach and helps us live in the present moment and to feel connected with the people in our lives and with all living beings. So it's a nicer place to live. But we need both to survive. As we said, all those emotions, that judging, that negativity bias, helped individual human beings survive so that they can reproduce, and that's why we're all here today. The right side of the brain, though, showed us how we need to be connected with other people. So it allowed us to work in communities beyond our immediate families and to expand our identity to the bigger community, and taught us to be altruistic so that the human race and communities could survive. So the right side of the brain also crucial for survival, and that's why both exist together. And I think our goal in our life is to accept our whole brain, our whole life, and our connection with other people. And by bringing both sides of the brain in balance, we can balance how we think and how we feel and be our best selves, achieve our potential. The different parts in both cerebral hemisphere throughout the cerebral cortex is called the default mode network. And it's where you go if you are just daydreaming, when you're not focused on a particular task and when you're not being mindful. And it's this system that we naturally fall into. It's daydreaming mode, where our mind wanders and we start thinking about the past, start thinking and planning about the future. We create a story, a very limited story of who we are, where we come from, and why we are the way we are. So it creates a very limited story, but often at a very subconscious, unconscious level. We're semi-conscious in these states, the daydreaming mode, like being in a trance. And we fall into this when we're not focused on a task and when we're not being mindful. So the most important thing, your superpower, is your brain has a remarkable ability to learn and adapt. And with deliberate practice, we can learn new ways of thinking and feeling, new ways of connecting these portions of the brains together. And we can create new habits of thought, feeling, and being, just like any other habit. So Donald Hebb, who's a famous neuroscientist from McGill University, coined the term in the 1950s, neuroplasticity, meaning our ability for our brains and nervous systems to change and adapt. That's how we learn. He found that neurons that habitually fire together repeatedly wired together as if they're connected together. This is how we learn new things and new habits. So after you learn how to ride a bike or learn how to speak, it just comes naturally without you having to think about it. In the same way, we can learn new ways of responding to situations that normally would make us feel stressed or anxious or really depressed. And when we practice new patterns of thinking and relating to ourselves and other people, we kind of create new patterns. So it almost feels like it's hardwired, but it can always change with deliberate practice. Another principle of neuroscience is called attention density. What we focus on, we magnify, we really solidify. So when we focus and repeat things over and over again with lots of intensity and emotion and concentration, we solidify that. And that can go in a positive or negative way. So if we focus on the negative, we amplify that, and that's all we'll see. If we focus on possibilities and our strengths and the good in other people, that's what we will see. Roget wrote the thesaurus in ancient times, and you probably used this in elementary school. So thesaurus is not a dictionary, but it's a manual of antonyms, words that mean the opposite of each other, and synonyms, words that mean similar things. So you may not have known that Roget wrote his thesaurus because he was feeling depressed and lonely. He had lost some loved ones, some dear friends, and he wanted to feel better. So he wanted to come up with words that meant the opposite, the antonyms of depression, isolation, sadness. And he came up with the opposite: connection, love, happiness, joy. So when we're dealing with difficult things, it's important that we take out that thesaurus so we can start visualizing the positive. So with this little primer, the user manual of your brain, we recognize that we naturally focus on the negative in our lives, that we all do. That's a natural human tendency. That's how we survived. And emotions, because of the structure of the brain, can take over our thoughts. And when we repeat self-defeating thoughts, it perpetuates negative emotions in a vicious cycle. And the emotions influence our thoughts. Those thoughts influence our emotions. And neuropsychology shows us the way out. We can use that brain 3.0, the cerebral cortex, with mindfulness, cognitive therapy, and creative visualization. Focusing on the positive perspectives and emotional states, we can strengthen them. And our new self-affirming positive practice will become hardwired through that power of neuroplasticity. What we repeatedly practice becomes our natural habit. So the key is to practice these new skills every day with every opportunity. So what is that superpower that you didn't know you had? It's called metacognition, the ability to recognize your own thoughts, beliefs, and emotions, and know that you can transform them. So putting some distance, some mindful distance from those immediate thoughts, beliefs, and emotions, and knowing that you can judge them, you can choose, and you can transform them like magic. So you can go from someone with social anxiety that I had as a young adult and child to someone that feels confident in sharing important things with people I care about, all of you. That you can go from someone that worries about everything to someone that has appropriate caution, but can move forward and live their best lives. The habits of thought, belief, and action of the left brain can be transformed with the perspective of the right brain. So let's launch into those key emotional health skills. There'll be self-care for managing stress, mindfulness to get that right brain perspective, cognitive therapy for recognizing thoughts that aren't working for you and answering them with positive, well-adjusted, potentiating thoughts. And then finally, creative visualization to visualize your goals and to achieve them. So stress and burnout. So as a doctor, I'm expert on this. As you know, family doctors have been burning out, really stressed, and not in what we naturally want to have, which is flow. So flow doesn't mean just running the office on time and patients not waiting. Flow is that special state where the challenges before us, be it at home, work, or in sport, perfectly matches our abilities and the support and time that we have. So that's the idea where it matches perfectly, that we're just challenged enough and living to our abilities and things work well, we achieve our potential. That's flow. But if it's the opposite, if the challenges are, we have so little to do that's not interesting, and we have so much more ability and time, we're going to be bored, like a smart kid at school, not getting enough challenge. When those both meet, the challenge meets resources, we have flow, which is great. But so often in our days, especially as adults and kids in school at exam time, kids in university, and people just struggling with financial stresses or loss of a job, the challenge can outstrip our ability to manage. That's when we feel stressed. If there's too much to do, not enough time, not enough support, we start feeling helpless, and that begets anxiety. If this goes on to the extreme, we feel burnt out and we start feeling hopeless that things will never get better. We're in this deep pit of too much to do and not enough support or abilities to manage, and we can fall into depression. So just think about the past week and just think about the balance of your life's demands and your ability to manage them. If you feel it's a bit too much or too little, and how stressed you might be with that. In the next couple of slides, I'll go through fairly quickly, but just to know that there are physical signs of stress, emotional symptoms, how we think under stress, and behaviors we do under stress, that it affects all of these aspects of our lives. And we all respond in different ways. A lot of the symptoms of stress, people come to the doctor for, with headaches, heartburn, palpitation, shallow breathing, rapid breathing, bowel problems. Some of them are due to stress, although we have to rule out an important physical cause. Some of the emotional symptoms could be sadness and depression, jitteriness, anxiety, sometimes even anger, or some people get more manic and race around when they're under stress as well. So we all respond in different ways. And under stress, a lot of people become more negative and ruminate more, blame other people or blame themselves, to have more angry thoughts that they normally wouldn't have if they're not stressed. So we don't act our best selves under stress. We might rush, or we might be slowed down. We might sleep too much, or we might not sleep at all. Some people are more aggressive, and some people just withdraw. And some of us respond by working even harder, like many family doctors. Some of us use chemical crutches like smoking or other drugs to cope with stress, or alcohol. And some people just exercise too much to the degree that they're harming their bodies. And it affects our relationship. We overreact to things. We get into more arguments. We might withdraw. So these slides are going to be available, or they're already available on our website for Empowering Patients. So you can download it, and if you have time this weekend, not too stressed, if you have a moment, sit down with a partner, a family member, or best friend, and kind of go over the stress symptoms with each other, just to check each other out. So one of the number one things in managing stress is our perspective. We need this sense of control. In psychology, we call it the locus of control. So a key factor in the development of burnout is feeling that you have no control, that feeling that you're not able to manage. But in spite of the demands of our lives, we often have more control than we think. Of course, we have to accept the things we can't change at the moment, knowing that things are changing all the time. We have to accept a responsibility to change what we can. So it's that serenity prayer from Reinhold Niebuhr. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Another useful rule of thumb is the 80-20 rule, that 20% of our reaction to a situation is related to the facts of the situation, but 80%, or a large part of it, might be just a reaction from what comes up from the past and how we think about the situation in the present. So that's important to recognize. And sometimes you need to talk to a friend or a counselor just to get that perspective. How much is really related to the situation? How much is our perspective? So with any stress, identify the sources. Are we reacting in proportion to the stress? What are the things that are within our control? What do I need to accept? And what can I modify in a positive way to recognize that choice? And we need to manage stress every day. So many of you are great parents to your kids, your grandkids, but maybe not such a good parent to yourself. So think about the advice as a good parent you would give to a child. And it's very similar to what we all need to do as adults for ourselves. So a good parent will tell their kid to go out and play if it's safe and sunny. So have a regular exercise routine. So my routine every single day, except for Christmas Day when the pools are closed, is to go to a community pool every day and swim my routine 80 lengths of front crawl so that I can get my exercise, and it's my time to meditate as well. Number 2, don't skip your meals. So schedule healthy, regular meals throughout the day. We have to schedule those in and know that that's really important, even if we're super, super busy. And go to bed to get enough sleep and take regular breaks throughout the day. So important for your physical and emotional well-being. And when you need to, go to the doctor if you're having serious physical symptoms or serious emotional symptoms as well, or difficulties with your relationships. I deal with all of that. So that's part of family practice, treating the whole person and all aspects of your health. We're here for every aspect of your health. And we need to express our emotions in a safe environment with people that we trust. I have my own support group, informal support group with 2 of my colleagues. One's a general surgeon at Burnaby Hospital, and one's a family practice colleague that I've known since just after medical school. And we meet at Tim Hortons, and we met virtually during the pandemic. And we know that we can create a safe space that we can talk about our wives and our children and our staff and our patients in a confidential setting. And important to live in accord with your values. As Mahatma Gandhi said, happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. It will help you do that. It's very important to attend to your relationships. And the greatest tragedy in all of our lives is that we may go through life not knowing how much we were loved by the people in our lives and who we touched. So don't miss an opportunity to show how you care for the people in your life. And remember, you have to think of and express 5 positives for every negative, knowing that our brains are so Velcro for the negative things. So when you give a comment, which may come off as a criticism or demand to your partner or your child, know that you need to balance that by at least 5 positive things that you love and care about and admire and appreciate in them, just to balance out and be neutral. That often is so difficult to do that we hold off on saying that negative thing. So your relations are fundamental to your happiness, and neglecting them is a big risk to your emotional and physical well-being. The rest of your life will consume as much as you allow it to. So don't invest less time and energy to what you value the most. And for your relationships to thrive, you have to attend to them every day, every week. I like to remind people about healthy relationships. So when people get married, there's a common invitation that says, today I'm marrying my best friend. That's what I had on my wedding invitation with my wife many years ago. But when people fall out of love, if they were to have a divorce party, it would suddenly be, today I divorced my worst enemy. So how do you go from best friend to worst enemy? And it's by not attending to your relationship and allowing that focus and Velcro for the negative things to pile up, that we change our opinion about the other person in our relationship. So we need to work on our important relationships every day. So we need to foster that continued emotional intimacy, agree on a habit of checking in with each other every day. Not what did you do today, but how are you doing today? How was your day? How are you feeling? And to be there present and listen rather than just watching TV or doing tasks on a computer or checking your social media. So eye to eye, face-to-face contact, and asking those important questions and checking in, so you're not surprised with someone's emotional responses. And we have to show our affection. Again, 5 positive things for every negative thing, but to know that we each need to feel and express love in different ways. So the 5 languages of love from Gary Chapman's books are words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. So depending on the culture of our family when we grew up, we learn to express love and to feel love in different ways. So you may have grown up in a family where people actually say, I love you every day, or at least at holiday times. But there's many families where the word is never used. It's like a 4-letter word, but they show their love by spending time together, by being present, or by giving gifts or acts of service or doing things for each other, or the physical touch. And if you grew up in a family where that physical touch and presence is important, and you have a loved one that doesn't express it this way, that's busy at work, not spending time together, not showing affection with hugs and kisses, they may do it in other ways that you're not recognizing. So it's good for every couple and children and parents to sit down and talk about how they express love, how they feel love, and to be able to express in other ways to each other. That awareness is really important, because we, as I said, it's a shame people can still love each other but not recognize that and feel that love from one another, because they're just speaking a different language, born of the culture that they were raised in. And we have to schedule regular dates with our loved ones. Commit the time to what matters most. Don't wait till there's some free time. You have to make time. So my wife and I have a regular theater tickets to the Stanley Theaters. That's something we'll look forward to. We set up regular dates to go to movies or to go out to dinner. We have to commit and do that so we can spend time together, quality time. So don't wait for time, you have to make time. And I don't agree on affairs unless it's with your own partner. So you have to make things spicy and interesting with the person that you're committed to. So leave love letters in their lunchbox, send them a little text to show you with little hearts when in the middle of the day. Maybe sneak away for a lunch or coffee break if you're able to during your days. It's, again, way safer, cheaper, and healthier than other types of affairs. So the second key skill is mindfulness. And a lot of people think mindfulness is just meditation. But mindfulness is more than that. I use it to calm my mind, to center my thoughts, to reflect on life as a whole, and to really stay connected with my values throughout each day. So it's not something that I would just leave to do on a Sunday. So I use it to kind of recenter, to remain anchored in the present. And I allow emotions to be kind of a signal that it's time to focus. So a strong emotion makes me reflect on, what am I thinking, feeling, and saying? And are they aligned? As Mahatma Gandhi said, are important for happiness. It's like checking a compass or looking at the map. So you're not getting lost by following the GPS instructions or detours. It's important to frame each day with thankfulness, so you're priming your brain to look for the positive instead of the negative. So I start each day with a prayer of thankfulness and gratitude upon, and do the same thing when I go to sleep at nighttime. So though it's commonly thought of as meditation, it is now used to manage chronic pain, for stress, depression, and anxiety. And it's a really evidence-based practice that was established by John Kabat-Zinn at the Harvard Medical School. And although it has Buddhist origin and popularized by the Dalai Lama and Thich Nhat Hanh, it is used by many secular, non-religious psychologists, physicians, and other mental health professionals like myself. Most people think that mindfulness is just being present, paying attention to the sensations of eating a grape, or just paying attention to your breath and physical sensations. But that's just the beginning. You learn to experience all phenomena, everything in your awareness, the physical sensations, sound, sight, smells, thoughts, and feelings without judgment or identification. So not attaching to our thoughts. Most of us, when we have a thought or emotion, we become that emotion and think it's a part of ourselves. That's why it's so hard to let go of anger and to forgive, because we have a lot of ownership in that emotion. We say, I am sad, or I am hurt, rather than we say it's my pain or my anger, rather than just recognizing it's just a changing emotion. And we can get carried away with our thoughts, in our trains of thoughts, in that default mode network, kind of creating a false narrative and a limited story of who we are and what happened. In mindfulness, we recognize that our suffering comes not just from what happens to us, the situation, but it's how we react by pushing away what we call aversion, as in anger, fear, or hatred, or clinging or craving, such as desire or thirst or longing. So it's been said that the second arrow causes our suffering. The first arrow is that pain or feeling or thought or situation. And the second arrow is our resistance and our reaction to it. If we let down our resistance, accept instead, and recognize, we lessen the intensity of the suffering. So two of the mind states we're trying to nurture, which are right-brained to balance our left brain, is equanimity, a sense of peace, empty of our egos, not siding with ourselves, and accepting all things unconditionally. And we nurture compassion or unconditional love for all beings, so that we care for others as much as we care for ourselves, because we know that we are connected. We're part of a greater identity. Because we are much happier when we accept others and ourselves with compassion and without judgment. So mindfulness, to become a part of your everyday living, needs to be practiced not only every day, but throughout the day. So I have a particular protocol and regimen that I that I encourage with my patients. So it's not enough just to give them a lecture or a workshop on mindfulness. You really have to make it part of your everyday throughout each day. So it can inform how you respond and act to other people and with your own thoughts and feelings. So it's like an airplane on autopilot. We're always correcting and staying on course. And you need to be mindful throughout the day in order to do that. So one is with deliberate meditation practice. So we'll just do it for 3 minutes. So get in a relaxed state with your eyes open or closed. And I'll guide you just to a really short practice of mindfulness meditation. Normally, you'd like to do it for 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And my aunt, who's a Buddhist, can do it for hours at a time. But it's a good way of just settling and focusing on what it feels to be in the present moment, attuned to the sensations and whatever arises. So I invite you to close your eyes, get comfortable knowing that you can move at any time. And if your mind naturally wanders and starts thinking about what comes next, an ache or a pain, or something that happened earlier today, be kind and gentle with the right side of your brain and just gently bring your attention back to what we're focusing on. So I want you to close your eyes, just notice the sounds that arise around you. Sounds that are close up and sounds that are in the distance. That could include the sound of your own breathing or people around you, the sound of fans or heating systems or traffic in the distance, or the sound of my own voice. And it's always a good way to begin the meditation practice, not just with a focus on the breath and sensations, but with sound, because we don't control sound that enters our awareness, but we notice how it comes and goes and constantly changes. I invite you to turn your attention to the sensations of your own breath, what it feels like to take a natural breath in, not trying to control it or make it slow or deep, but just notice how you naturally breathe all on your own. And notice where you feel that breath. Notice the sensations with the in-breath and the pause before the out-breath. And notice other sensations in your body, the sensations in the palms of your hand. Notice areas that feel warmer and other areas that feel cool. You may notice comfortable tingling sensations in the palms of your hand or in your fingers. And notice that you can shift your attention to different areas of your body, shifting your awareness. All these sensations, sounds, feelings are always there, constantly changing. But we are not always aware of them until we pause and focus. And with daily practice, expanding the amount of time that you spend focusing on the changing soundscape around you, the dynamic movements of your own breath, and the changing sensations in your body. You become grounded in the present and can distance yourself from thoughts and feelings. And you can open your eyes and know that in the handouts that you can download, I include my mindfulness handbook that I put together for my patients when I'm teaching them mindfulness. And it kind of gives you kind of a stepwise approach and some resources so that you can practice not only daily meditation practice, but the other really crucial techniques in making mindfulness as part of your usual routine. So we need to take daily mindful breaks throughout the day. So when you're having a snack in the morning or having your lunch or breakfast, when you go to the washroom, these are opportunities to be mindful. And there's a really useful resource that I've included in the references, microdosing mindfulness. So it's not microdosing LSD, it's microdosing little 30 to 60 seconds of mindfulness throughout the day to reground you. So you can have that perspective so you're not rushing head forward throughout the day. So if you look at microdosing mindfulness website of University of California in Berkeley, you can see the research and the practical exercises. So during your break, you can look out the window and look at movement, whether that's the traffic or people walking, the constant motion of the leaves or the wind blowing the rain. So seeing this constant movement out your window or around you, just observing without judging or clinging. Notice the constant change. You can reflect on where you are in the big scheme of things. Remember where you are, that you're just in this small little community, part of a bigger city, bigger nation, a whole continent, the planet, solar system, the universe. We can have a moment of mindfulness just making eye contact with someone else. By taking a common object, like a favorite mug or a pen, and just looking at the details, the texture, the feeling that you don't normally notice. Or if you're able to, you can dance and move and feel connected with your body. Enjoy a shower. Actually, only guys take 30-second showers. But notice the sensations rather than letting your mind wander. Notice the physical sensations, the warmth of the water, how it feels on your body. And we can also take moments to deliberately reflect on what we call the 4 divine abodes: peace, joy, compassion, and love. Qualities that nurture that right, expanded part of your mind. That first is gratitude, remembering the things you are grateful for. So I do that as a regular prayer in the morning, when I retire in the evening, but just being grateful for the things we take for granted, like the safety and well-being we have in our lives, the blessings of the earth that you've been given, and the measure of health that you've been given. And with gratitude, remembering the family and friends that you have, and the community that you belong to, and the teachings and lessons that you have learned. Offer gratitude for the life that you have been given, this precious life. And the second quality is peace or equanimity. Breathing in, I calm my body. Breathing out, I calm my mind. May I be balanced. May I be at peace. May I learn to see the arising and passing of all things with equanimity and balance. And may I be open and balanced and peaceful. I also induce the quality of peace by just visualizing being in a favorite or safe place, in the presence of someone that is extremely peaceful and calm. So you might bring to mind a religious figure to your mind who exudes peace, and imagine being in their presence. In the same way, joy, feeling involved, engaged in life, and forgetting yourself because you're so filled with joy. You can bring to mind wonderful times where you just feel naturally happy and selfless. like being in the presence of family at Christmas time just a few weeks ago. That brings me joy to have my dad and my sister and brother-in-law and all my kids all together at the same table with our loved ones. Or the joy that you felt when you held a baby that was dear to you for the first time. Or the joy that I felt when just playing with my kids when they were toddlers and growing up and doing story time together. And the joy just to be in the presence of someone that you care about. And the third is compassion, and having compassion for the people around you and yourself. May you be held in compassion. May any pain and sorrow be eased, and may you be at peace. And one of the most deepest important is unconditional love that they call metta, or loving kindness. So I envision the person that I want to wish this towards. I think, may you be happy and healthy, peaceful and safe. This is my daughter when she was a little toddler. And it's helpful to think of other people if you want to nurture unconditional love, to know what you have in common. So if there's someone in your life that you'd like to feel unconditional love towards, imagine them in your mind right now in front of you. And it could be someone that you don't naturally feel a lot of unconditional love for. But this person in front of you, as you visualize them, their presence now, was once a baby held in the arms of parents, just like you. This person that you envision in front of you was a toddler learning new things and learning to walk and riding a bike. Went to school and had ambitions, success, and some failures. Growing up, this person has had their joys and they've had their disappointments. This person in front of you suffers the same emotions and feelings that you suffer, and has had experiences that we don't know about. And this person just wants to be happy, just like you. So this is a picture I just took before I left the office in our staff washroom. So it's a reminder for our staff members and our doctors. So when they're sitting on the toilet taking their break, that they take a moment to know that we wish them unconditional love. May you be happy and healthy, peaceful and safe. And it might be useful for them to see that if they've had a difficult encounter with their last consultation with a patient. And this is a sign I have at my workstation in the hallway at my office. And it reminds me to center with each patient, that I center on what I'm experiencing, feel my breath. What am I thinking? Think on peace. What have I been doing? Walk in grace. What I've been saying, speak the truth. And what do I see? See beauty. How am I relating? Express love. And finally, who am I? Experiencing the wonder. And the fourth method of a daily practice of mindfulness is to listen to podcasts of some expert lecturers and meditators and teachers like Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach, all in your references. Joseph Goldstein, and books by Thich Nhat Hanh, John Kabat-Zinn, and Rick Hanson. The fifth method is to welcome the waits in our lives. So when you're in the elevator, when you're waiting for a traffic light, waiting at a bus stop or in a lineup, use those as opportunities to do this little mindfulness meditation. Think of those four divine abodes: compassion and gratitude, joy, unconditional love, and express one of those and meditate on one of those, or express them towards people around you. Opportunities to be centered rather than just taking out your phone and looking at social media. And when you are aroused by situations, negative thoughts or strong emotions that seize your attention, that would get you trapped in the left side of the brain, recognize that these are meditation bells. And remind yourself to ask, what am I thinking, doing, and feeling? So think of a chime going off that tells you to stop and reflect. What am I thinking, doing, and feeling? So welcome those interruptions And those situations, they're there for us to learn. So we use the RAIN acronym to deal with those strong emotions or feelings. Recognize what am I feeling, thinking, and experiencing. Accept without judgment, clinging or pushing away. Investigate, observe, note, maybe choose an alternative, helpful thought. And finally, nurture and non-identify with compassion. Let it go, let it flow. I'm not my thoughts. I am not this feeling. And this will be helpful when we talk about the next practice of cognitive therapy, the THINK acronym. Is this thought true? Is this thought helpful in my situation? Is the thought inspiring? Is it inspiring me and moving me towards positive action? Is this thought necessary? And does this thought meet my needs? And finally, is this thought kind? We should use this THINK acronym before we send an email and before we say something that we might regret. So reflect on the thoughts that trigger your emotions. Is there another way of looking at the situation? And what would you say to a best friend? I like to use this mountain and weather metaphor. So your whole awareness is not the clouds or the rain or the snow. You are the mountain. Or you can imagine your reality to be the sky. So I took this picture in Hawaii because we are so high up this volcano that we saw clouds forming and transforming. And normally we are so far away from the clouds, we think they're not moving. And normally we think of our emotions and thoughts as something real and solid, where they're so fleeting and changing. You are not your thoughts and the feelings of the moment. You are the sky. So we need to create this mindfulness habit and to frame each day with our intentions. Thankfulness, reaffirming our deepest values and our mission in life. And with daily practice, and it has to be daily practice, you'll engage your natural ability to create new habits of thought, feeling, and being. So start tomorrow. And then the next skill is cognitive therapy, knowing that our thoughts shape our emotions, and we can transform how we feel by what we do, our actions, and what we think, our thoughts. So these are common cognitive distortions or thought patterns we fall into that are maladaptive, make us feel worse. So the first is fortune telling, assuming you really know how the future is going to unfold. So an example is, I'll never be able to manage these feelings. I'll always feel this way. And you can counter it with a more balanced thought, like, I can't predict the future, but I can be ready for whatever may come. Mind reading is that distortion, thinking or believing you really know what another person is thinking, which we can't unless we check it out. For example, I know why she hasn't called me or texted me. She did that just to hurt me. We don't know if that's true. So you can counter that with a more kind thought. I should give others the benefit of the doubt and maybe check things out. Overgeneralizing is making broad assumptions based on the facts, which are often limited. Examples are, you can't trust anyone. They're all the same, really big generalizations. But we can balance it by more open thoughts, that one rotten banana doesn't make the whole bunch bad, and other people are individuals just like me. Polarizing is falling into all or nothing, black and white, and good or bad thinking. For example, this pandemic is a disaster. There's nothing good in this situation. Whereas we know perhaps our situation is not so bad. We have support that others don't. And this challenge has brought out a lot of kindness from others. Shooting is inappropriate judgment, such as everyone should wear a mask, I have to be perfect. And you can counter that by a kinder, compassionate thought. He may not have realized what he was doing. She's probably doing the best she can. And personalizing is a pattern of taking things too personally, such as he did that deliberately just to hurt me. Or you can instead think, maybe he's having a bad day and I should just let that go. Catastrophizing is common in depression, believing the worst things will actually happen. such as, I'm going to fail and I'll never be a success. This really is the end of the world and I'm going to get sick and die. We can counter catastrophizing by a more balanced thought. I'll prepare for the worst, but I know it's not likely to happen. I know how to stay well, and I know where to get help. Disqualifying the positive is downplaying the positive aspects of your situation and really minimizing the good that you've done already. Such as, I was just lucky that time. There's nothing good in this situation. Whereas a more growth mindset is, I'm learning and getting better. Our family and community have really come together to help one another. So to keep calm, we have to review these cognitive distortions that we all have. And again, use that THINK acronym. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? So think about what you would say to a best friend if they had those thoughts, or what would a best friend tell you? That brings that right side of the brain online with compassion and love. We all need a little self-compassion. Again, these references are available. There's also some help if you would like to learn cognitive therapy more formally through bounceback.ca that you can self-refer to, or your family doctor can refer you. And the CBT skills group, which is a really good online group where you can learn mindfulness and CBT skills with practice in 1 or 2 hour sessions. I believe it's 6 sessions that you can be referred to by your family physician anywhere in the province. And the final mental health skill is visualizing your goals, like I said about the Roger and the thesaurus. So instead of letting your default mode network create a false narrative, a false sense of self, we have to visualize the positive. You start with your core beliefs and values and choose goals that are aligned with your greatest values. Is that a sense of community, love, your family, your sense of responsibility and commitment? Which values resonate with you? And recognize your calling. What do your talents, your passions, and the needs of the world tell you that you must do to feel fulfilled? We all have unquestioned assumptions and core beliefs that kind of create these cognitive distortions. So it's really helpful for us to start questioning them. So do my core beliefs that keep coming up, do they bring me closer or further from others, from the rest of society, and from my real goals? Do they foster positive feelings like love and connection and peace, or do they foster positive actions like creativity, kindness, and generosity? So a lot of us have these limited beliefs, and you might recognize them because we all have them. I have to be perfect to be loved. I can't trust anyone. Life is unfair. Often born of early learning in childhood or early life experiences. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve success, happiness, or love, or I am powerless. So many have had experiences, but their current situation, this may no longer be true. These limiting beliefs, these core beliefs, often came out of that brain on autopilot when we weren't deliberate. Often when we're impressionable as children, we kind of create this narrow story of ourselves and our abilities. And they really shape how we see the world and our own minds. But we can reverse that with a skill we practice with self-hypnosis. It's creative visualization. And allowing the conscious mind to relax, engage in the subconscious mind with vivid imagery, feelings, and sensations. And we relax ourselves and visualize what we hope to achieve. We can see ourselves in the near future having achieved our goals and mastered these skills and feeling engaged in life and feeling unconditional love and a sense of peace and acceptance so that we can rise and manage whatever life brings us. So these are some core beliefs that I use, that I am a part of a greater whole, part of a family and a member of this community. I have a unique positive potential, my gift to the world, and I can make a positive difference with actions great and small. I'm continually learning and growing, and I can adapt to any change. Because life is all about change. It causes us stress, but it's the nature of our lives, of reality. It is our very nature. We're constantly changing. We're not separate individual cells that never change. We're constantly being renewed and growing and changing. And again, we have to accept what we cannot change, but accept responsibility to change what we can. That we have to be agents of positive change and dynamically responsive to change, and to seek out that positive potential in each moment. So with your superpower to be aware of your thoughts and emotions and these skills to manage them, you can be an agent of positive change. Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see, and you know you can see the change you wish to be. So we've learned that though our habits, thoughts, and behaviors seem hardwired, with effort and repetition, we can transform our own minds. And with deliberate practice, we can learn new ways of thinking and feeling, creating new habits of thought, feeling, and being. Remember that neurons that fire together, wire together. And what we repeat, mindfulness practice, reflecting on our thoughts, focusing on the positive, and daily practice, and expanding your sense of self beyond that narrow conception of the left side of your brain to that sense of being part of a greater whole with a mission to achieve your potential. Focus on what you want to make stronger and magnify, and we can evolve into our positive potential. So I've gone a little over time, but if you're able to hang on, I'd just like you to close your eyes and take an easy breath in and allow your body and your conscious mind to relax, but remain comfortably focused. And imagine yourself in a favorite safe place. It could be in your imagination from the past, or a favorite vacation spot where you feel comfortably at ease and safe. And imagine around you people that love you unconditionally. So notice the sounds and sensations in your body and in your heart in this place, and make it real. And feel your love for the people around you, your sense of connection, your desire for their well-being, and feel their love for you. Know that you are part of this greater whole, not only of the people in your lives, but all humanity. And know that you've been given the ability to reflect, to step back from our immediate thoughts and feelings, and to see yourself as part of this greater whole, and knowing that you can be compassionate and kind to yourself. Master difficult emotions, accept them, and thank them, but answer with thoughts of compassion and kindness. So there's a positive potential to be realized in every way, but we must see, feel, and act. And I believe we each have a unique positive potential in life, and it's our calling to realize that potential and help others achieve theirs. And we each can be agents of positive change in our own lives, in our community, and in our world. So together, let us be the change we wish to see, and see the change you wish to be. And I'd like you to gently open your eyes and know that you've learned so much and excited about so many things that you'd like to practice. And I invite you to download my handout on mindfulness and all the resources, and starting tomorrow to make it a part of your daily practice. And I guarantee it'll transform how you enjoy every day and feel more connected to the people around you. So I'm sorry I went over time. I definitely had so much more to teach than we can compress in just an hour and a half, but I would like to open things up to any questions. And just a reminder, our next talk is on what we all should know about heart disease, and really we all should know about it because it'll affect every one of us eventually, or our loved ones.
I've just put the registration link for the February 16th Heart Disease Talk into the chat. So folks can actually register right now if they'd like to participate. So we did have a question from somebody, and I'll just paraphrase a little bit. They live downtown Vancouver, and it's a very stressful area to live, close to safe injection sites, social housing, so lots of noise, car accidents, all that crazy thing. So hopefully, Mubina, you got some tips in tonight's talk about how you might be able to manage that. They did finish the question or the comment saying that they are leaving. They're moving away from that area. So hopefully they'll move to a place that's a bit calmer. So I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
It is really difficult if you're in an environment where that is not supportive, if you're feeling isolated. And these are really important things that we can't fix all on our own. That's why the Division of Family Practices are working with community partners so that we can help people that are kind of stuck in financial situations, social situations where they're isolated, don't have enough money, not enough food or healthy food to feel well. So these are the social determinants of health that as individuals, we don't have a lot of control over. But to know that there are organizations like the Vancouver and Burnaby Division of Family Practice, so to really connect with our local resources and to know that a lot of us are there to help you and to guide you. So please reach out. We're really fortunate in Burnaby that patients in my practice that we can connect to a social worker that works with our PCN, primary care network. And social workers have been such a great resource for helping people to get the resources, apply for extra funding that's available that you may not know about, and ways to access supportive counseling that most of us can't afford, and to access some food security in your life. We need all these helpers and working together to lift one another out of difficult situations.
Great. Well, thank you. So there's other comments that were shared with just you and I, Dr. Wong. I don't know what H has a few comments there. A recommendation on a book called Brain Saver. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. So I'll let you go through those comments there. Tanya asked, do the glands in the brain affect the disease, for example, by bipolar disorder?
There's no glands in the brain. Oh, you're talking about like the pituitary gland? Like
they said hypophysis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the pituitary, the hypophysis, they produce hormones, and actually anyone that's lived with teenagers know that hormones affects behavior and our thinking and our emotional health as well. Yeah, so could you read out that? I couldn't find the full question.
Oh, it's up a little bit further. Do the glands, the hypophysis in the brain affect the disease, for example, bipolar disorder?
They can, but not directly. They can cause other conditions that can affect how we feel physically. So that can influence things as well. But it's not actually targeted as part of the psychiatric medicine.
Great. And then one just comment or question is around practicing forgiveness and I guess self-love. So I know you've talked about that a little bit through this, but it seems to be a big, just a prominent thought for H, who's participating tonight. So just if you've done something unintentional, but you're feeling guilt for it, are there ways to sort of work through that? And I don't know, maybe perhaps this isn't the venue, but I wanted to make sure that the question was out there.
Yeah, when we've done things in the past, we can have a lot of remorse. We often blame ourselves inordinately because we know that something is wrong based on how we see it now. But we have to have some compassion knowing we made the decision based on what we knew our sense of self, how we saw the situation at that time, and maybe under the influence of tremendous stress. So forgiveness has to, of course, we want forgiveness from the other person that might have been harmed. We have to do our best to make amends, acknowledge what we've done, make sure that we have grown and changed and learned from it, and to see what we can do to help that person or to make amends to someone else if we can't do that. So it's difficult. We have to be forgiven, but we have to accept what's happened with compassion. And it's probably something that you can't do on your own. You probably need a compassionate ally to know that all of us, no matter what we did or who we are, deserve to be loved and accepted just as we are.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's definitely fair. Hopefully that helps a little bit. And again, the resources that Dr. Wong spoke of are in on the in other resources. I'm just going to throw the link in the chat, and that includes some of the organizations that are available in the Burnaby community that you may want to reach out to help get some of that extra support. And that covers all of our questions. Lots of thank yous. So appreciate that. Like great words of positivity and meta love from Pete. So yeah.
Well, thank you,
I think we
everyone.
did it.
Yeah, so I hope everyone can start the homework because it's transformative. You could really expand your sense of self and your sense of connection with other people and live your potential. And you can really manage difficult emotions, even those difficult ones like self-forgiveness.
Great. Well, thank you so much, as usual. Thank you for letting me be a part of this. And it was nice to see all the folks out tonight. Don't forget, when we close down the session, there is a very brief survey, just some feedback for us. So if you can take a minute to fill that out, that would be great.
Great. Thanks, Leona. Thanks for making it all possible.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. You have a great night.
Great evening.
Stay dry.
Take care.
Bye-bye.